Hi guys, and welcome to Angling for You. And today join me at the wonderful Lindholme Lakes, and we are shallow fishing on bonsais with maggots. And we've got a little jigger rig set up. We've just been feeding maggots and getting a few fish into the peg, and as you can see they're eager to comply. And you know, we've got a couple of pints of maggots which will do us today for a bit of filming, but guys, be under no illusion. I've just been talking to Speedy and he ran out with 12 pints on a 5-hour match with 2 hours to go. So you know, the amount of bait you need to compete if you're fishing this in a match, it's not a cheap method, but for a bit of pleasure fishing and a bit of fun on these kind of venues, it's a great bit of fun and it's a great way to catch. And today we're going to go about fishing the jigger. We'll explain how we fish the jigger, how we got it set up. We've got a little bit of different connection on the elastic as well, so we'll talk about that as well. And this one's putting up a great little look out of himself, and in he is. Lovely little F1 to get started. Now this method, like fishing a shallow pellet or anything that's shallow fishing, can absolutely be devastating, and you know, it couldn't be an easier method. Beautiful little F1 to get started, and that's the sort of stamp that we're hoping to catch. It's a little bit bigger than when they were first put in, because I do like that bait, and we're going to keep out there. I'm just going to feed them, and that is the key, is feeding. I'm just going to feed them, but there's a duck waiting for me feed, and he's going to have head down in my peg, so I'm just going to put another maggot on. And again, an important thing to note when you're doing the maggots, and again we'll do this up close, is side hooking those maggots. Now it's really important because of the way that they fall through the water. Now if you get in a little experiment and you throw some maggots into some water where you can see it fall, then they'll fall sideways. Now if you're fishing and you're hooking your maggot on the end, then it's going to fall completely different to what that maggot does. Now if you've never heard of a jigger, now what that is basically a float that you can pass your line through, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail when we get closer. Now what's the advantage of using this to fish in what they call a fixed rig, is that you can lower this through the water and effectively search for where the depth of the fish is. You can lower it at what speed you want to lower it. If you want to lower it fast, slow, medium, whatever you want, you can do that. What a lot of anglers do, and certainly if you're in a match environment where you know you're fishing for money and speed, they'll have a lot of duplicate rigs set up, and they'll sort of fix the rigs when they figure out a depth. So if they're lowering it every time and they're getting fish hitting it at a certain depth, then it's a lot quicker to just flick it over and allow it to settle at that depth. And that is what a lot of people will do when they figure out where the fish are, and the fish will move still in the match. They'll still move about, but that's where those fixed rigs can really pay dividends. Like I said, there's a couple of important things when fishing a jigger, and some of those we'll go into when we're actually showing you the rig up close, and that's down to the kind of line that you use and the reason why, and also is the length of what you're going to fish to. Now the helps when there's a ripple as well. As you can see, there's a little ripple coming now, and that just gives the fish a little bit of confidence, a little bit of cover that they can hide in. There you go, only a little one this time. Hopefully we want those slightly bigger fish there like we first hooked, but try and keep that feed going in. But it's only a tiny little F1 is this one, and we definitely don't want to be catching these ones. I'm going to use my net because even though it's tiny, Lindholme, you always have to to net your fish. And it's a tiny little F1, is that one. That's a little picture perfect little F1. Just needs a little disgorger action. We can get to that over here. I definitely wanted that maggot. There we go. And he goes. Maggot's absolutely perfect, to be fair. He just swallowed the hook on these hooks again. We'll go into, but I like a smaller sort of 16 or 18 hook when I'm fishing shallow. Don't like to go anything bigger than that if I'm fishing for F1s. If I fish for carp, where I'm using a pellet, maybe I'll go a little bit shallower. A little bit bigger in the pellet that I choose, the hook that I choose to match the pellet. Certainly if you're fishing a pellet waggler, I usually fish a size 12 a lot of the time with that. Into another fish, and again another small one. But it's not about always, I mean it is about catching the better stamp. That's what we want to compete, but we're showing the method, and it's the method that is important. And hopefully some of those bigger ones will come back. A lovely little F1, like in miniature. Perfectly hooked on the nose, that one. And again, check over the maggot. Still absolutely fine. And that's important, you know, if you can fish with it, especially if you're doing it for speed and it's all right, then go with it. I also find personally, and this may vary venue to venue, but I do like a white maggot, especially if it's cloudy like today. I just feel that it shows up in the water. There we go. And again, and you see it's just that consistency. That was a little tiny touch bigger, not as big as that first one we had. We're just holding it to the side, just getting a bit more maggots out there, so it just keeps that swim going while we put this one in the net. Like I say, we don't want these real little ones, but if you keep these little ones going, then sooner or later the bigger ones they'll notice what's going on, and that's when they bully them out and you start to catch the better stamp. So my other tip is to find yourself a marker. So we got a good marker on my elbow on the pole, and that allows me to know what distance I'm fishing at. And I'm only using a margin pole today. It's a relatively stiff margin pole, and the top kits, it allows me to put smaller elastics in. And that brings me on to the next thing. We'll talk about it when we get the rig out up close, but using the right elastic. Now you do not want an heavy elastic. Depending on what venue you're fishing, depending on what size fish, a 10 to 12, or if they're really decent size F1s consistently, 12 to 14 maybe, you want them to be able to swim out of the swim with as little disruption as possible. It's all about hooking them and then getting them to swim away out of the peg so you can keep feeding. Now, the other thing is the consistent array of bait. You've got to be ringing the doorbell, even if you're not getting the bites, especially with the jigger. You can search that water, so if they do move up and down in the columns, that's a bit better one. If they do move up and down in the columns, like that one was slightly lower down in the column than the other two, and it's a slightly better stamp, nothing crazy, but a slightly better stamp of fish. then that's where the jigger comes into play. And most fish that you catch shallow will be hooked right in the top lip, where they've just come and attacked the bait and they're in and they're away. And that's important. And again, look, we've caught 4 or so, 5 maybe fish, and that bait's still untouched because they're just hitting it, and with the type of the hook which we'll go into, they've just take it and they're gone. And this is why it's such a devastating method. And you can slap over, but today with the way that we're fishing, I'm using the bait as a dinner bell, and we're just lowering up and down as that goes through the water. Right guys, let's have a look at the setup. So like I said, jigger fishing can't be simpler in regards to the rig. Now there's a lot of people that fish this up and down the country, and they've all got their own ways, lines, hooks and everything that they use. Just gonna go into mine. So I'll start with the hook link. Now I've got 020 Acra Power, and now that is the main line of the whole rig. Now there's a reason why we go for 0.20. Now we're not expecting to catch 100-pound carp, and that's why we've got 0.20. The reason purely is to allow it to be stiff enough for the float to jig or move up and down the line. If it's too fine of a line, it won't pass through the jigger as smoothly and as effectively is the word I'm looking for. Now the other mistake that I see people using when they use the jigger is they put the stop, which is just a Preston rubber stop, any of the float stops. The extra tight Guru ones are good as well. This is an 8 to 10 mil dibber for a Preston one. Now they do the top one, which will explain why there's a top one, and then they do the bottom one, but they don't put shot on the line. Now I don't have a bottom rubber, I just have the 3 size 8 stops, and the reason I do that is, and the reason you need that is because those stops are the weight that's pulling that line taut through the jigger. Now the buoyancy of the water obviously makes the float rise, and that won't go no deeper than wherever you set that top. So that's about 2 and a bit foot, about 2.5 foot is the maximum depth this can fish at. But then the minimum depth up to this shot here is about 4 inches, and that's got a hook link, a 3-inch hook link on there. And I'll show you actually what hook link is. I've shortened it a little bit, but in my little box of tricks here, it is to 015 16 XSHB, and they're the hooks that I have got pre-tied there. You can tie your own. I do tie my own a lot, especially if you're doing banded, but they're quick and easy, and all I've done there is slightly shortened it. You can get short hook link versions of it, and I've just shortened that down because that allows me to fish shallower, and that's how simple the rig needs to be. Now coming up to the elastic, like I said to you, having a lighter elastic just allows the fish to swim in and out, and this is obviously a blue jura. But what's most important for me is not tangling it. Now it doesn't affect me too much with a jigger because I'm going up and down, but if you're flicking it over, you can get rollovers over the elastic and tangles if your Dacron connector's too long. Now I fasten mine to a knot or a spider knot. That's how I fasten all my rigs. All my top kits are like that. I moved to this about 2 years ago, and I fish directly to that, and all I've got there is a Preston feeder bead, and all I do is slide that back over and up to the knot at the top, and that's it, simple as that. But that gives you no place to tangle, so if you are flicking it over, you don't get any tangles up, which is really important when you are catching many fish, and certainly if you hook anything that's relatively decent. Otherwise you're going to have some problems. You can also see, and again not important in regards to what they are, these are the Preston rig hookers. just a piece of a spare elastic doubled over and on there. It allows you to just hook your rigs on, so when they are on the rest or they're behind you, it's nice and simple to keep them all stored. Now what we'll do is we'll hook this maggot and we'll explain like we said before. So like I said to you, when you throw maggots in water, they fall sideways, not straight down. So if you're hooking it straight down, yours automatically looks a little bit different. So I've been using white maggots today. I've caught on reds and all sorts of things through the past, but I just like white maggots. And what I'm trying to do is just nick the side of it. Sometimes a little bit tricky, can be a little bit tricky. There we go. And he is side on. Put him next to my black top, hopefully you can see him, but he's side on and he's going to fall sideways through that water column, and that's exactly what we need and want that to happen. The next thing is about the feeding. Now when you're feeding, and I understand it can be, people aren't as consistent or maybe as confident with using a catapult. You need a nice little catapult. This is just a nice little Guru one. It's quite a particularly light elastic. I'm only going probably 7 meters. I probably could feed by hand, but for accuracy, just consistently using the catapult at this range, probably fine up to around even 13 meters if it's not too windy, even with pellets or maggots. And it's just a gentle little push out, and what we'll do is we'll zoom the camera in close so you can see how we hold the pole and how we fire it. Granted, I'm left-handed, so you will have to change the angle of the dangle when it comes to you if you're right-handed. But we'll flip back to main screen, we'll get right onto the catapult first, and we can see how we hold that while we're firing it out the bait. Okay guys, so we've got out the pole itself. Now you can see it's rested under my elbow, but I've got 2 fingers against the side of the pole holding it, and then it gives me my finger and my thumb to be able to hold on to the catapult itself. I've got the maggots literally just to my side, so I can feel where they are at the right height for me. I'm a bit short, so I stack them on top of another bait box. Now it's all about those 2 fingers and thumbs. Now you're pinching that's the one that is gonna stay still. The right hand is the one that pulls out, and that fires the catapult. It's a bit more difficult doing it in slow motion, so we'll just go with it in regular motion. But just firing it out, and then we can obviously lower the bait in and out of that feed. There's one, a little one straight away on it there. So again, just give it a little feed before you ship your pole back in, and we'll do that again. Hopefully we catch him a little bit bigger sized one than this. Want those bigger fish to come back. Just gone for it, this one. There we go. Check that maggot again. It's a bit dead, that one, so we're going to put another maggot on. And again, go through that. A little bit of side hooking. The hands a wipe. And it's like anything, it's like pace fishing, it's like everything that we do. We get into a routine. Find the marker on your elbow, pick the catapult up and start again. Now, in regards to how many, depends on how many are feeding. Another one there straight away. It's all about being consistent. rather the big boys, but this one's a little bit better than that one last one, so we'll definitely prefer that size to the other ones. But as you can see, let's hold him down, that it is lip hooked straight in that top lip, and that's where you want to be hooking them. Just in that top lip allows you to unhook them nice and quickly. Your bait, you have obviously bait stays on longer, and it just makes for an all-round quicker setup. So we've got a little bit of side breeze now, and that's where those, like I was saying, those fingers stay on the side of the pole. That can keep my pole steady along with my elbow, and then swing that into that free finger and thumb, and there we go. And there we go, straight on cue there. We had a fish on as well, but that just shows you how lethal it can be when you get them feeding. Straight on the end of the pole, and again into a fish. We could even get away with even lighter probably elastic for the size of fish that we're catching today. Fortunately, I ain't got any lighter than what we've already got. And here we go. Ooh, and again, it's just about finding that out, and there's a few there now, as you can see, and it might be that we fix the rig a little bit to get the more consistent hookups, because when you've got a fixed rig, you can strike and they'll hit, and what we'll do is we'll set up a little shallow rig where it's a fixed rig, and we'll show that to the camera, and we'll see what difference that can make. Right guys, obviously we've swapped over to the other rig. We'll go through this rig in a little bit more detail. This allows us to slap over, like I say, it's a fixed rig, and there you go, straight away we're into a fish, not having to search the water. We've been obviously watching whereabouts we've been hooking the fish, and we got one straight away. Again, these little small ones, but hopefully if we keep feeding these, the bigger ones will turn up. So I'm just gonna get a bit of feed out there. And for speed, it does make it obviously a lot easier to do it this way. And you're fishing at a consistent depth. Took that as I was just about to flick over, but unfortunately there's these little ones at the moment, but we don't really want those. We want the bigger ones, and it looks a bit crazy netting them, but that's the fishery rules, to net all fish. So that's why we're doing that, just in case you're wondering why the hell we're netting a 2-ounce fish. And slapping over just obviously simulates the maggots hitting the water. There we go. Bit better on this one. This is what I thought. feed a little bit heavier, sometimes you get the better ones coming. And that's what we want to do. And Benny's, the average stamp, obviously, and Laurels and things like that are a lot much bigger, but this one I've instantly got stocked and has got a lot of the smaller fish in from when it had its new refit. But these are the sort of size that you really want to be getting into. That's the size we want. Hooked perfectly, like the others, in the top lip. Bang on in that top lip. It won't take you a long time to put a decent weight together if you've got fish like that. But you see how effective both methods are. A lot of it is to do with the feeding, but a lot of it is to do with how the rig performs. And we will look at this rig in a bit more detail once it stops being silly and lets me unravel it. Stop. Just started, obviously, last few pouches are just introducing a little bit more bait, just try and encourage these bit bigger fish to have a go. Again, one of those little small fish. I'm just going to get a couple of pouches in this time before we drop in. Another, again, a small fish. What we'll do is we'll bring the rig up close like we've just done with the other, and we'll have a little go explain about what's different on this one opposed to the other rig, apart from the obviousness that it is a fixed rig. Right guys, so a little bit different to the other rig, as you can see from straight away. Let's find the line. So the line is 016 Power Micron, and there's a couple of reasons why I like Power Micron for this. Because it's monofilament, it's really durable. It means when you're flicking it over, it's just got the stretch and it's got the durability, and I do like that it also has a little bit of stiffness with it, the Power Micron, which is great for presentation. Allows you to just follow it down. Now the rig is simple. It's a Preston dibber. It's a 4x10s. Now I do like my Drennan Crystal dibber. It's my favourite for uber shallow fishing. When you're fishing like this, it's just my favourite. But today we're fishing just over a foot, which allows us to get away with the darker flow. It's got metal stem. It's really stable. It cocks really quickly. The line goes through the middle of the flow, so it's really stable and really in touch with a fish. Which I find really good. 2 number 8 stots bunched beneath it, and then we've got a little tiny hook link with, again, that XSHB number 16 with a single maggot side hooked. Now elastic again is just a light Dura elastic, and the same thing, a knot with a bead, just bang on straight onto the line. So when we're flicking it over, it means that, as you can see, it's not getting tangled. So we flick it over, and because that it's holding it out at the end, we've got no tangles. And that's really important when you're fishing it, that you get no tangles. Tangles are a no-no when fishing the pole, as you probably know if you do fish the pole frequently. They are a no-no. Let's ship back out. We've got to keep this angle on for a second and just give it a slap over. And I can see fish sort of swirling around. Put a few maggitos out there. Got a little bit of a wind from right to left. Now another little tip, and Alex told me this from Lindholme years ago when I was fishing for F1s. When you've got a crosswind, and you're fishing shallow, so the wind's coming from right to left like it is today, always flick over to your left, and that'll straighten your rig quicker than if you're flicking it into the wind. And it seems a logical thing, but sometimes you do it without thinking about it and you flick the opposite way just because it feels more comfortable. But try and get comfortable trying to flick both ways. And alternate your flicking, so I've gone 4 times that time. Into a fish, only a little one. But again, if it's little, and you know, you just steer it out your peg, not doing anything, and then get out some bait, ready for the next time. There you go in. Now ideally, like I said, we want to catch those bigger fish, but when we're starting and stopping for the camera, obviously we're not consistently spraying in loads and loads of feed, and hopefully we will get them going. Let's give it another once over. There we go. Bit better one. Not massive, but a bit better than the penny floaters. And you can sort of tolerate these size ones, 10 ounce. So if you're catching them regularly, which is the really, really tiny ones, which are not worth the effort. So guys, hopefully that's give you a little bit of an insight of how I do my shallow fishing, certainly my shallow maggot fishing. And you know, it's like I say, a devastating method that, you know, anybody can try, and well worth trying, I would say, and certainly on a venue like Lindholme Lakes that is absolutely full of fantastic hard fighting F1s. If you want to join us on the Facebook group, we've got some members days coming up, one in July 22nd I think, and one in August as well, I think the 6th. So do have a look out there and join us on the Facebook group at Angling For You. If you want to look at photos, then join us at angling_for_you on Instagram, and if you want to see any other videos, then have a look through our playlist. And if you could like, share and subscribe and join the Angling For You family, that'd be fantastic. And until the next one guys, thank you very much for watching. Tight lines.